Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here at the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to come to you this morning with a book chat, and the book that I wanted to chat about was The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. Recently, well, I say recently, in the last year and a half, I've been trying to pick up some stuff for my reading that is, maybe out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I thank all of you out on BookTube for that, because you guys talk about books like a lot of books that I don't necessarily read, but you make them sound so interesting. And after I'm going to be coming up on my third year on BookTube here this coming January, and I've heard over and over and over again about these different genres, especially like science fiction, fantasy, and all that. Now, I haven't dipped my toe into fantasy yet, but I did start to dip my toe into science fiction. And I started with, the classics with H.G. Wells, and then I've got some other stuff upstairs on the nightstand. And I've enjoyed H.G. Wells. I never thought I would have. And I'd like to put a big shout out to Shawn D. Standfast. He has talked so much about science fiction. Now, I haven't dipped my toes into some of the, the bigger works that he's talked about, but it just got me thinking I want to try it. And I've been glad that I have. And I read The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. I just loved it. Did a review on that, had some really good positive feedback from that review or from that book chat. And so I read this one. I don't know that I liked it as much as The Time Machine, but I was hoping that, with the positive feedback and just the chat that went on, that, I put this out there. Maybe you guys could chat with me and maybe get my brain, kind of going in that direction and make me think about stuff that, just maybe it didn't pop in my head as I was reading this. But anyway, this copy of The Island of Dr. Moreau is from Dover Thrift Editions. If you're not familiar with these, they take the text and they put it down to a very, very small size, and they limit the margins, and they kind of cramp it all in there, but they do that on purpose, and they do that so that they can keep costs down to make these books very affordable to anyone and everyone. So like this copy, when it was new, it came out at $3 a copy, and let's see, this copy was from 1996. So, $3, that's not much for a brand new book. And I was very happy to pick this up. I picked it up used, probably paid $1 for it, I think, maybe 50 cents. I can't remember exactly how much I paid for it, but got it at a very affordable price, cheap enough that I could take a chance on it. That's kind of the big thing I'm getting at. I'm taking a chance on a genre that I'm not super comfortable with, but I am starting to enjoy it as I'm reading it. So anyway, what is The Island of Dr. Moreau about? That's kind of the big question. We'll get into this chat. I have discussed H.G. Wells before. I won't give you, a bunch of background on him. He was born in 1866, died in 1946. This book was published in 1896 originally. And so what H.G. Wells likes to do in his writing, or based on what I've read so far anyway, he likes to deal with social issues. And in this particular book, we've got 3 main characters and then a whole bunch of, I'll call them side characters. Edward Prendick is the main character. He is the one that kind of narrates this book. He was in a shipwreck out in the ocean, and is picked up at sea and taken to this island, the island of Dr. Moreau. And Montgomery is another main character in this. He's the guy that finds Edward Prendick out at sea and takes him to the island and introduces him to Dr. Moreau, who owns the island. He runs the island. he introduces him to Dr. Moreau and several of the side characters. Now, Montgomery is Dr. Moreau's assistant. Dr. Moreau is a scientist who, as the book goes on, you find out that he's kind of a sick man, if you ask me, in some of the scientific stuff that he does. And and if I did say it before, I've got a couple of notes scribbled down here. So if you see me looking down, I'm just kind of going back to my notes so I don't miss something. But he is the type of scientist who takes different animals, takes different parts of different animals, puts them all together into one animal, trying to make the perfect beast, or as he calls his people, the beast folk. And this island is full of beast folk, and those are our side characters. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. This isn't going to be a detailed analysis of the book. I'm just kind of hitting on some of I'll tell you an overall look at the book, an overall summary, and then what were the themes, and just what I thought of it. So like I said, Edward Prendick, shipwrecked, is picked up by Montgomery and taken to the island of Dr. Moreau, where immediately he runs into some of the beast folk, and he's he is taken to, we'll call it the laboratory, I guess, and given a bedroom, and kind of kept he's kind of kept in this bedroom, or this room, off to himself, and he's not really introduced to Dr. Moreau right off the get-go and the science of Dr. Moreau. But he keeps hearing this yelling and this screaming from this one particular animal, but in general, several different animals. And these are the animals that we find out later in the book that Dr. Moreau is working on. He is causing lots of pain, trying to create this perfect animal. Cutting them up and putting them back together. And he's also in the process of doing some brainwashing and trying to get them to think one way. But the problem is, a lot of these animals he's using, these are animals that cannot be domesticated, first of all. And they are animals that, they by nature are wild, and they've got certain natural urges. And that is what Dr. Moreau is trying to get out of the animals, or those natural urges. And he's trying to put together, with the beast folk, he's trying to put together this race of animals that will serve their human masters. And so we really get this idea right off the get-go of imperialism, with one race being able to conquer another. We get this idea of racism, where the humans are the best and the other races are down here, and we're trying to build those up, but we cannot. Throughout the book, Dr. Moreau struggles, and it talks about all of the death that happens because he can't get that perfect animal. And so we see this, as he's trying to create this master. I don't want to say master race, because they're never going to be as good as Dr. Moreau's race, but he's trying to build them up. And so we see this theme of racism. And so anyway, there's a point in the book where Edward Prendick goes wandering out on the island, and he ends up exploring by accident several parts of the island. He runs into these beast folk, and he experiences firsthand what their brainwashing is like, if you will. And so he ends up running back to the laboratory, eventually makes his way back to the laboratory after finding all of these. And through this all is basically the first 2/3 of the book. And about 2/3 of the way through the book or so, something goes very, very wrong with the one animal that Dr. Moreau has been experimenting on, and this animal breaks loose, and they have to go hunt him down. And basically what we see, without totally spoiling the book, the last 1/3, the pace of the book really picks up, by the way. I struggled with the first 2/3 just because it was slower paced, and maybe I just need to go back and reread it again, but it was slower paced. And then the last 1/3 of the book just takes off. And I I enjoyed that last 1/3 of the book as far as pacing and stuff goes. The story really picked up. But anyway, this animal disappears on the island, and Dr. Moreau and Montgomery and they're out hunting the animal, trying to hunt it down, and the animal's going to have to be put down because they've figured out that it's a failed experiment. And so what we find is that all of the beast folk, they are starting to, and the constant problem in the scientific part of this is that they can't change their natural just way of thinking, and they always revert back to their natural tendencies. And again, this is of the time period, this racism, this imperialistic feel. For me anyway, this is how I was viewing the book. And so don't want to spoil it, but the beast folk, I think I could tell you, they do turn back to their natural state, and then it's a battle of survival for Dr. Moreau, Montgomery, and Edward Prendick. And how are we going to survive? Because the animals are starting to turn on us, and they're going back to that natural state where, they want to kill, they want to eat, and their subservience is not there anymore. And so we get all of this through the book, and that'll be as far as I take you in the storyline, because I don't want to spoil the whole thing. But some of the themes that we see in this book, or that I saw as I was reading it, the idea of pain and cruelty as Dr. Moreau is working on these animals. And the weird thing is that as I was reading that, the first thing that popped in my mind was, the Nazi experimentation during the Holocaust on the Jewish people, and just all of this stuff. Dr. Started with an M. I'm going blank. Holy moly. Mendele, Dr. Right, Joseph Mendele, I believe. Anyway, all the experimentation that he did, and all the other doctors during the Holocaust did. That was what popped in my head. And so I really got this dark feeling for this book because of that mental image that I got. Let's see, moral responsibility. I really got to thinking about our moral responsibility, and do we have the right to play God and try to, take one thing and create another and change what was in nature. And that theme really runs through the whole book without question. Just our identity itself. Do we try to change our identity? And is it right to take those two animals and change their identity and try to make something different? Or do we stick with what's in nature? Let's see. I already talked about the idea of an advanced race bringing another race to a higher level of intelligence. And so again, we get into that, to me anyway, that Nazi thought and those ideals. And it really bothered me. And this was in a time period before that, because, like when I teach my kids at school, the underlying ideas that the Nazis used in their, master race and all that had actually been around in Europe. That thought had been around in Europe for quite a while, several decades, and it just kind of blew up, and they took it and ran with that idea. And so that idea very much in 1896 very much is in the what am I trying to say? The social ideas of the time. And then again, the idea, and I think I've already said this, the human interference with nature, and can you change the nature of something? And then you get to thinking about the idea of environment. What environment you grow up in, does that change your nature or your natural inclinations as a human being? So you take what's going on with this with these animals on the island, and you really start thinking about, you start applying it to humans, and you start thinking about, just all the things that, like I grew up in foster care, and you see kids when they've got bad environments, when they're growing up, that cycle can continue. Well, I was in foster care and my environment changed and things got better for me. And so I was not a product of when I was really young. And, can you change the natural state of somebody? So you start, taking this thought of what's going on with the animals. Of course, this is a little more extreme, obviously, with changing their entire identity physically and everything and mentally. But you take this and you start thinking about life itself and can you change stuff? And so you can, take that in a lot of different directions. But anyway, when I got to looking this up, because I wanted to see my thoughts compared to others. But the book was written as a response to, I took a couple of notes, as a response to, in Europe, the degeneration of the human race, that thought in the time period of 1896. And it was also written, let's see, and this kind of plays into that, but the ethical, philosophical, and scientific concerns and controversies raised by themes and the ideas of Darwinian evolution. And so, you get all of that stuff that was happening in the later half of the 1800s, all of those social issues and thoughts, and H.G. Wells spun it into a story, The Island of Dr. Moreau. And, you get a lot of thinking about what's right and what's wrong in society and how we, try to deal with stuff. So anyway, I don't know if that was enough to make you want to read the book, but it was interesting. I would recommend it. I wouldn't make it a 5-star for me. I don't think it was as good as The Time Machine when I read that, but it is a book that, like The Time Machine, has stuck with me and continued to make me think about it. So maybe it's better than I think it is. That's always something that, comes up. So anyway, BookTube, I'll try not to draw this out any further. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought. If you have read the Island of Dr. Moreau, what did you get out of it? And what am I missing? Because I'm probably missing something. Again, not my genre. And sometimes I'm reading, like I said, the first 2/3 of the book's a little slower paced. And so, like with any reading, you're not paying as much attention when it slows the pace of the book. And maybe I just missed some stuff. That very well could have happened. So let me know what you thought. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did I miss? Or do you have further discussions on what I did get out of it? So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope everyone is doing well. And as a side note to everybody, I did catch up my comments section. First couple weeks of school are now under our belts, and it's been a busy first couple of weeks. And I guess I shouldn't apologize because everybody keeps telling me to quit apologizing about real life. So I won't apologize. But my comments got a little behind the last week and a half to 2 weeks, but they are all now caught up. So, if you put comments in, I'll keep up with them now, at least until life picks up pace again. So thank you for watching, BookTube. I hope everyone's having a great Labor Day weekend. Enjoy extra time with your family. And until next time, happy reading.